Just check and see. All right. Hi, this is Sir Rithkin and Antir, and this is part of my 50 Duke interview series. I'm here with His Royal Majesty Morgan of Atenveldt, or as I called him last night, His Royal Majesty Batman. Because when I first met him, my God, that he looked like Batman. So anyway, that's sort of my joke with him. I'm excited to talk to him. He's sitting as king right now. This is his 4th reign, I believe.
Yes.
And he is the 100th king of Atenveldt right now. So thank you very much for joining me. We usually start these with sort of your origin story, like how you found the SCA, where, when, that kind of thing. So if you want to start with that, that would be great.
Sure. Well, first I wanted to thank you for wanting to interview me. I think that's one of the things saving us right now is the virtual content that people are getting. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're doing a great job. And my origin, I found the SCA really late. I've only been in the SCA 20 years, but I'm almost 50, so late in my life. A friend of mine I grew up in Southern California, and I was out visiting. I ran into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in years that had gone away to the military in Germany. And he was unhappy with his current situation. So I got him to move out to Arizona, and he stayed with me for about a month till he got on his feet, but he had this duffel bag full of armor. And, and I picked up his sword and he started explaining it to me. And I was like, wait, people will let me hit them with this and they'll be okay with it. They won't call the cops. And so very quickly I looked up and found where all the local practices were to me. And I found a place where I could get the things that I needed. So I found a cheap helmet and knees and elbows, because that was the only thing I couldn't make myself. And jumped right in and never looked back. So
did he fight with you at the beginning?
Yes. He still fights today. And that put me, because he's part of that group too. So I started with a mercenary household. The current crown of Qaid is the head of that group. And so we all grew up together. I've known them since grade school. So
nice.
But didn't find the SCA until I was almost 30. So
well, you find it when you find it, right?
Right.
So who did you hook up with and get mentored by?
So I probably spent the first 5 years of my SCA just as a warfighter. I went to a household practice, but then my friend Rook, who had moved here, he moved to Salt Lake City. And so I realized that I was going to have to find my own way. And so I started playing more mainstream, going to regular practices. And then I squired to Duke Tristan, which you've probably met him.
I fought him before, I think.
Yeah. So I squired to him. And by the time I was ready to squire, really what happened was I was his squire, but I didn't really maybe have all that drive I needed. But I happened to be there the day that Dungal from Ashir Metalworks, the day he got knighted, I was there.
Oh, cool.
And it was the first knighting ceremony I had seen, and like the emotion and everything from that was what really set me on my path. And I was like, this is something I want. So
And you had been fighting mostly wars for like about 5 years before you found fight practice and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was still doing singles practice, but it was at a household practice. So, when you only get as good as the pool you're swimming in. And at the time, I got to that point where I wasn't growing, so.
Did you start Sword and Shield?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started with a heater, and that was not the right tool for me. Center grip shield's the only thing for me now.
So when you picked up the center grip, did it just feel natural where the heater didn't?
Yeah, it unlocked my feet.
Oh.
The heater made me feel like I was rooted to the ground.
Interesting.
And you fought me, so I don't sit still.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you have the reach of a gorilla or something. I don't know. Like your arms are way longer than your opponent thinks they are, because you can close range when I don't think you're in range. But anyway,
Well, so I get payback for that because Duke Alenon goes to my practice. So
did I lose him?
his arms are longer than mine.
Oh, okay.
So, I think the video froze. There we go.
Are you back? Yeah.
Yeah, back.
So you squired to Tristan and you saw Dongal get knighted, and then what changed in your training when you got excited about, maybe doing the path to knighthood?
I started to going to as many practices as I could get to every week. So 2 to 3 every week, focusing on what I was doing, and kind of realized that, well, if night circles is where they go to sit down and talk about people, I don't want any of them, if my name was to come up, I didn't want anybody to say who. So I made sure to go through every inch of this kingdom and make sure everybody knew who I was. Anybody, if you wore a white belt, you were going to have to fight me. So
motivated.
Well, and ironically, you get better when you fight everybody that's over your level. So it helped me in that aspect too.
And was that something that you decided to do on your own, or did Tristan sort of set you on a quest?
Tristan would probably like me to give him credit, but that was all personal drive.
Okay. Are you a Pell work person?
So funny, the evolution, and I think a lot of fighters go through this. Pell is super important when you first start, and then somewhere in the middle, you drift away from it because like we think we don't need it anymore. And I find now that it's more important now than it was when I started, because it helps me work through problems. I can visualize mistakes that I might be making when I'm in a regular fight, and I can work through, be it footwork or blocks or position on the Pell. And I now have an open Pell night where well, not really right now, but before everything went sideways. And teaching others helps come up with new ideas, helps me grow what I'm doing, because by verbalizing it so often.
What is your favorite drill on the Pell?
Well, I mean, I think everybody is already using the 1 through 6 that Uther is famous for posting videos of years ago. That's a good start point. I'm really pushing all of the people after listening to the interview with Sven from Onstiora, because I'm friends with him too. And after hearing the brutality of his Pell practice, I sent out warnings to everybody that comes to my practice that, hey, this is what we're working towards.
Doing 1,000 and 1,000
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have to do them perfect, I mean, that you're going to have to think about it, and really you're sort of losing track of what you're doing because you're trying to focus on perfection anyway. But yeah, he's crazy obsessed, like in a good way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, but it shows in his fighting. So
yeah, definitely.
But the one thing I think the mistake a lot of people make with their Pell work is that sometimes they'll just stand in front of it and throw the shots. They're not working their footwork. They're not working the transitions from one shot to the next. Like Havek just had a really good class that he posted. That the thing was like a 3-parter. Yeah. It was really good about. It explains that you have to work all of it. You can't just stand in front of it and throw shots. It's not, because it won't translate to when you're fighting.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to lose your imagination or your creativity when you're doing your Pell work. And I think maybe that's why in the middle, like you sort of lose your enthusiasm for it.
Well, a lot of times, like at my practice, I'll have 2 fighters fight either side of the Pell. So then you can kind of use what they're doing as your, like I'm visualizing blocking with the guy that's fighting on the other side of the Pell. and then throwing my own shot.
So
Does
it's
that make
almost
sense?
like a mirror drill.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, but you have no idea what they're going to do. Just like in a regular fight, you have no idea what they're throwing.
So when you were coming up, did you do a Pell practice at someone else's house like you're hosting now?
No, it was here. Even then, it was here.
Okay.
Like, remember, I was all in. I built a Pell, and which is probably bad because not having somebody that had more experience training me meant that I had to unlearn stuff that I wasted my time setting in stone on the Pell.
Well, but you joined late enough that YouTube was already a thing, right? I mean,
No, not really.
not really.
No, but like I said, I fought enough though that it didn't take long to realize what I needed to get rid of.
Okay. Do you guys do partnered work too?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's mostly footwork because we're not wearing armor at practice. So we'll work through footwork, like stepping out of the fight, stepping out of danger in the fight.
So what do you guys, I mean, your footwork is really phenomenal. What do you guys do to work on your footwork?
Well, I know you work with Sean too, Duke Sean. He was probably part of the start of what I do. It's that heel to toe, and he'll do. Has he ever shown you his compass drill?
Yeah.
So it's essentially that. That's essentially the footwork. It's then about timing and how to put yourself. I use my footwork to put me in a position where my opponent can't strike me, but I can still attack.
Okay.
Like I'll crowd their sword arm.
Okay. And how do you train that to the people that come to your practice?
Like I said, we'll work footwork opposing each other.
Okay.
Like I'll be the one advancing and they have to sidestep or retreat and vice versa. And we'll work through what's working and what's not.
Do you do those kind of drills where I think I've done them with Mark, Duke Mark from the West, where you find position and then you test it like
Mhm.
to see if you can hit and they can't or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So how long were you squire to Tristan?
3 years to the day.
Wow.
I took the squire's belt at Estrella and I was knighted at Estrella 3 years later.
That's pretty fast. Is that fast for Atenveldt?
Yeah. But like I said, it was all about focus. Like that's the one thing that's the hardest when you've got squires is drive. You can't teach drive. They either have their own personal drive or they don't. Can't really make somebody show up.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when they have potential but they don't have the drive.
Mm-hmm.
But
frustrating.
One of the characteristics, I think, of all the people I've talked to so far, and I think you're number 27, so I'm already halfway through. Nice. Is this huge drive? I mean, amazing drive, and most of it, is when they're younger and don't have kids. And I don't know if you already had kids or whatever before, but you're right. You can't teach it. But is there something that motivated you?
I'm super competitive. I don't like to lose.
Okay.
Do you probably have something you hear a lot.
Yeah, well, I understand being competitive. It's my biggest. My kid came out like totally not competitive at all, and I'm like, whose kid is this?
I have the same problem. My son does not have that at all.
Yeah, if she didn't come out of me, I would wonder, but she did. So
my kid looks just like me, so I have to accept it's my blood.
Did you play sports before?
I played hockey and I played baseball.
Okay. Do either of those backgrounds, do you think, helped you on your path?
Just the competitive side. I mean, neither of those sports really, I mean, other than you're swinging a stick in both of them, neither of them really are based on one-on-one, but.
Were you competitive with yourself?
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, so it was you against you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty much, I didn't do this right. And so I would drill and drill and drill until I could accomplish that. And I still do that today. Like I'll realize that, you know what, I'm not landing that shot anymore. It used to be one of my bread and butter shots. What am I doing wrong? Because shots come and go if you don't use them all the time. And so I'll drill till I get it back, even now.
So do you do like video analysis on yourself to figure out what you're missing, or do you just sort of clue into it?
Most of it I pick on my own stuff. I pick it up when I'm like in the fight. I realize because like he was my squire before he stepped up as a baron. Hates fighting me because even when he figures out something that works, I take it away because I'm always analyzing during the fight. And so when I get hit with something, it's okay, we need to change. This is what you did wrong. This is how you can turn it around. And so I'm making adjustments like, between fights. So.
And are you one of those people that can memorize all of that and you just can catalog it in your head, or do you keep a journal?
All in my head.
All in your head.
Yeah. Okay. I probably should keep a journal. I'm getting old, but.
Well, if your brain works that way, great, right?
Yeah.
So Uther's one of those people. He just remembers everything.
Oh yeah. One of the things I have to try not to do is when it's somebody I haven't fought in a long time, not allowing my brain to just tell me, okay, well, this is what they're going to do. Because I don't like to ever walk into a fight just assuming that they're going to give me the fight that they gave me the last time. Okay. I want to stay open to what are they doing today before I make any evaluation.
So besides Tristan, were there other people that were influential on your path to knighthood?
Yeah, Duke Arthur. He started a Sunday practice, which gave me another time I could go. And for a while, it was a lot of because it's on a Sunday, so it's usually early in the morning because it's hot here.
Right.
And so for a stretch, it was really just the two of us for like 2 hours every Sunday.
Nice.
So it was definitely a rite of passage. But,
okay. So did you get put on vigil, or did you just get knighted right away?
I got put on vigil because the crown at the time knew that because I was still heavily involved with the horsemen, Alexander's household. I'm still part of them. I'm just not as involved because I'm so distant. But they knew that I had a lot of friends from out of state that would want to be there for it. So that's part of why it was done at Estrella too.
Okay. So you're put on vigil before Estrella, and then you got elevated at Estrella?
Yep.
Okay. So you had a vigil at Estrella with all your out of kingdom friends?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite piece of regalia from getting knighted?
This chain right here, Duke Arthur made this chain for me. It's super heavy, and it's got links from his chain, Sir Dietrich, and Duke Tristan's chain.
Cool.
The rest of them are mine.
Nice. I love regalia with history.
Yeah.
So do you feel the same about knighthood now as you did when you got knighted?
Not even close. One of the most profound things for me was there was a book at my vigil that people signed, and my vigil went really late, and a lot of people just ended up signing my book instead of waiting because it was cold. It was in Estrella, and so reading in that book what people wrote and like how they saw me, like made me realize that I needed to strive to be more. I wanted to live up to what words were written in that book about me. I didn't feel like I measured up. And so it mattered to me, and it still does to this day. Like periodically I'll pick the book up and I'll read through it again just to keep me grounded. Remember that I can always be better.
So what part did you feel like you needed to live up to that you didn't already have?
It had nothing to do with prowess. It had more to be as being a peer.
Okay.
Being there for everybody and being that pillar, being somewhere people knew they could go if they needed something.
Okay. And were you already fighting crowns before you got knighted?
I fought in 2 crowns before I got knighted.
Because
in
Atenveldt, the culture is to fight, right?
Yeah. Back then it was still to fight, but if you weren't a knight, you had to have a knight speak for you for the crown.
Is that still true?
It's not.
Okay.
It doesn't really happen anymore. There's still some knights will, come up and speak for their squire, but for the most part.
So after getting knighted, when did you decide that you wanted to win a crown?
So funny, like 2 weeks after I got knighted, I won a baronial polling that I had put my name in for before I got offered. And so I stepped up as a landed baron, was it 4 months after I got knighted? So the whole time I was a landed baron, I did not fight crown because I felt like it was a conflict. It wasn't fair to the populace of my barony. So I stepped away from crown for 3 years. I got to be the bi-fighter here and there, but it's hard to train for that level when you're not, when you know you can't fight in it anyways.
Right. Well, being a landed baron is a tough job, so kudos to you for taking that on. Were you able to stay motivated while you were a landed baron to train and practice?
Yeah, so being a landed baron taught me what it meant to be a cheerleader for a group, which I think made me a better king later, because it made me realize that everybody matters, not just your clique of friends. When you're wearing that hat, you have to be there for everybody,
right?
Whether or not you even like them. So that was a good learning piece, which helps. And then having to, go through courts and stuff like that made me more at ease when I started fighting crown again, actually do the job. But I stayed motivated by building up the fighters of my barony so that they could go to wars with me and take the field with me, because I'm also motivated by the camaraderie on the field. I love melee.
Okay. Do you run sword and shield in melee, or do you have a melee weapon you like?
When I'm not fighting sword and shield, I'm fighting spear. For me, it really depends on what the field looks like, what I think our side needs. I'm really good at disrupting the flanks if I've got my sword and shield. But if we have enough guys already doing that, I'll usually just take my spear.
Okay, cool. So after you stepped down from being a landed baron, did you take a little break, or did you say, okay, this is it, we're going to go for it?
I went right back to fighting in crown.
Okay. All right. Did you do anything different training wise to be competitive in crown?
I was just going to, back to going to 2 practices a week. And I was getting better, but that's a slow process. And I hadn't really figured out, I hadn't been to the point where I could read the fight as well as I do now. So it was harder to tell what I was doing wrong. So harder to know what I needed to work on per se. And like I said, there wasn't a lot of video being taken at the time. So it really came down to, I finaled in crown with who now Duke Ivan from here. And it's hard to say if that's why I lost, but we went like 3 full rounds in the finals and I was exhausted. I had nothing left. And so I lost because I literally had nothing in the tank to fight. And that's what you mentioned last night. That's really what inspired me to
get all Batman,
adjust my fitness. Yeah. And so funny, all I do is cardio, but it's a heavy cardio.
So what do you do?
Insanity. I don't know. That's what it's called. It's one of the Sean T ones.
Cool. And did you just, after you lost to Ivan, you just decided, hey, I'm gonna never be gassed out again? I'm gonna
I decided I decided that I wanted that to never be the reason. I don't mind being bested in a fight. Like if I'm bested, I can walk out of that, Eric, with a big grin on my face. I just had a great fight. But if I lose due to like an injury or I just didn't have the gas left to finish the fight, that's terrible. And I felt like I should be better than that. If I felt that if I deserved to be in that format in the finals in a crown tournament, I should at least have the fitness to get through the fight. And so one of the things I do when we get close to crown now, I don't train any different as far as how I'm fighting, because I've had enough people teach me that you don't fight to win crown, you fight to be better than everybody.
Right.
But I'll go to practice and I'll fight. I usually set my marker for like 4 people till they're exhausted, but I'll fight like you until you need to take a break, and then I'll just go grab somebody else until they need to take a break, and without stopping. So my goal is if I can get through 3 people till they're exhausted before I have to take my helmet off and take a break, there'll be no round in crown that I can't get through.
Cool. So what else did you do to learn how to read the fight better and to be, tactically a more advanced fighter?
Taking a little more time at practice, like when asking the questions, hey, how did you get that shot in? Or, until you start recognizing what it is. And, and then with just traveling a lot and talking to some of the great teachers in our sport, I spent time talking to Sean. I spent time talking with Branos, is an amazing teacher. Ailenon, now that he's here, having those people that can kind of direct you, like, hey, why are you doing this? Because there's a lot of stuff that I did before that it was effective, but it was only effective because I was a thug. And so that doesn't always work. Fighting with a different mindset now, the mindset's more control my opponent's weapon before I worry about hitting them. That's the forefront of my thought process now. It changes the dynamic of the fight. It keeps me engaged in the fight because I need to see what they're doing to know when it's time, like when they've thrown a shot that they missed or threw a shot that I can easily block, because that tells me now I can go.
Right. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just that lets you know that I can go with less danger. The percentage of me getting hit goes down.
And what prompted you to shift your focus to controlling that part of the fight?
I won crown and knew that everywhere I went, and I was going to travel everywhere, I wanted to make sure I was living up to the crown on my head. Like I don't feel like I won that first crown as easily as I wanted to. Like I won it, but I lost the first. Like I went into finals 3 times and lost before I won, and it was getting frustrating. So I knew that I still needed. I wasn't where I wanted to be. I think that there's always somebody better than you, and that's part of my drive to never stop training. But I definitely wanted to minimize it, how often I lost.
So it takes a lot of faith to take the steps back, to take the step forward. And I'm just, where did you find that faith? Just that you knew what you were doing wasn't working, and so you're going to have to switch it?
I just knew that I needed to be more dynamic. I wanted it to not matter like what style the guy in front of me was fighting, that I still, the style that I was most known for at the time was I would just run you over and hit you in the ribs. There has to be more than that, because if you're winning most of your fights with one thing, all it takes is that one person that knows how to deal with it. And so I don't like being a one-trick pony.
What did you do to train your headspace?
It's just learning that it's okay to lose, right? For me, my headspace, I stay relaxed because I learn more when I lose. It's actually more frustrating if I go through like a whole practice and nobody puts a stick on me. That's actually, it almost feels like a wasted night because there was nothing to learn. You know, odds are I just used stuff I already have, and nobody stepped up. And so I'd actually rather lose fights in a practice, not a tournament maybe, but in a practice, I would rather lose fights and experiment and not take practice so seriously because nobody wins practice, right? And so we talk about changing your victory conditions at practice because it can be really frustrating if you go to practice and your mindset is, I just need to beat everybody. You're probably going to go home sad. You're certainly not going to go home feeling all good about yourself because that's a hard thing to accomplish, especially as you're working your way up. But if you set yourself as a small goal, like I'm not throwing a good flat snap, I'm not landing it very often. So tonight I'm just working on my flat snap. And so if you landed your flat snap, then that's your victory condition. The rest of it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you lost the fight as you were throwing the flat snap.
Right.
It's setting yourself goals. And so that's kind of how I keep my mind is I'm just focusing on little things at a time, little adjustments, and like I'll just get ideas like, oh, I wonder if this will work. I'm very lucky. I have our normal practice when things aren't shut down is probably one of the heaviest practices in the kingdom right now. You figure that's where American Zipser fight. That's where Al-Anon fights.
Oh, good practice.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a solid practice for teaching you how to block. So
do you guys collectively do anything to work together, like drills at that practice, or is that practice purely fighting?
It's purely fighting. I would really like I want to see us do more drills. I know some of the other guys there, we've talked about it. I want to do a little more of that. It's tough because it's never been the culture there. So you're trying to break an existing culture of people are just trying to hit each other.
Well, there's something to be said too for a high caliber practice like that, where you guys are all pushing each other and fighting at a high level. Because it's you and then Zipser. I mean, both out of the same practice, back to back, right?
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't.
There's been and Franbald used to practice there before he moved, and I mean there's a lot of talent at that practice. So, but we'll ask each other, hey, what are you working on tonight? So that we, if there's something we can do to help that person with what they're working on. And we usually end the practice with a breakdown. Like everybody says what they saw from everybody else.
That's cool. Do you guys tell each other before practice what you're working on?
Usually it'll be right before when we've already put our helmets on and we're about to start our fight with each other. We'll ask each other, hey, what are you working on tonight?
That's cool. Do you have a tourney day ritual?
But my tourney, for a crown tournament, but the only one I have any kind of a ritual for, and it usually starts the weekend before crown. It's kind of like Zen for me. I go in the garage, nobody else is there, and I'll make 2 brand new swords, make sure that they match weight and that the handles are exactly the same. And then I'll go through all my armor and make sure it's all clean, no tape. I don't like there to be any tape on my helmet when I'm gonna fight in crown. And just make sure all of my equipment's ready, all of my straps are intact. And then usually either the Wednesday or Thursday before crown, because I won't fight that week, but the Wednesday or Thursday before crown, I'll go. I have an acupuncture guy, and I'll go and he'll stick me with like almost 300 pins. Because I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I tend to carry a lot of inflammation. And so that little part of my prep like doing it Thursday or Friday, Wednesday or Thursday gives it a couple of days to continue flushing all the inflammation out of me. So by the time I'm there Saturday morning, and then obviously if it's out of town, I try to be there that night, like Friday night, get a hotel room so I'm not having to drive in the morning to get to the tournament. But I don't generally like do fights to warm up. Like I'll stretch, but that's about it.
You don't do warm-up fights at all?
Not before Crown.
Wow.
Well, so all of our fights are all of our rounds are 2 out of 3. So if I need to make a mistake, I can make one every round.
Okay. Wow. Is there time to do warm-ups though?
There can be if you get there early enough. Crown, the fighting doesn't usually start till 10. Okay. You could easily get some fights in if you wanted to. I have in the past. It never got any benefit from it, so I just wait.
You learn what works for you, I guess, you know. And
yeah, and that's I won't eat a whole lot that morning. I'll eat something really light, and then during the course of the day, it's like I'll alternate between water and Gatorade between rounds, and then like a hard-boiled egg or a protein shake. Nothing heavy, just enough fuel to keep me going throughout the day.
What do you think the difference was between the 3 crowns that you got second in and then the first one that you won?
So my second round, I don't know that this is what it was, but it definitely lit a fire. I lost my second round fight. We had both stepped in and threw the same shot. We both made contact. I said good. And then the marshal came up, "You guys satisfied?" And I said, "Yeah, he hit me." And so I walked out, and my opponent came up to me after we had left the Eric and said, "I wish you had taken a harder shot." And I was like, well, that would have been good news to have in the ring when we still could have done something about it, but that's okay. I'll see you at the end of the day. And that kind of set my head that I needed to make it to the end of the day. And he didn't end up being the guy in the finals with me, but I got lucky. The guy I was in the finals with had a great day because he was fighting with sword and spear. And most of the people in our kingdom don't deal with that very often, but I travel to the Outlands a lot. So I wasn't intimidated by it. Okay. And I knew how to deal with it. So.
Do you do any like sort of triggering exercise or anything to get your headspace where you need it once you're on the field?
For me, it's really, I like to be the first guy in the Eric. So like, I'll know when my next match is. I'll be watching. So I know that I'm watching the fight that's going to happen before me. And like, it's a 2 out of 3. And so I know when they get to what's probably their last fight, I'm making sure I've got my helmet and my sword because I want to be the first one in the Eric. It's kind of like that dominance thing. I want to decide where I'm standing when we fight. So being in the Eric first gives me that luxury. Cool. I don't know. And I tap my knee cop. You've probably seen me do it. I'll stand there and I tap my knee cop with my sword.
And that's just sort of...
It kind of just gets my head ready for business.
What role does your consort play on tourney day?
So she's the one that just keeps me relaxed, makes sure that I'm not getting in my own head. She's brutally honest though. Like if I walk out of a fight and I didn't look like I should, she'll say something. So she'll ask me why I did whatever I did that was dumb. She's also, because I'm carrying her honor into the fight, at the end of every set, like of Crown, I will look to her before I leave the Eric, because I'm looking for her to tell me no. I missed something, and so that I can be prepared to tell the marshals, no, I actually lost. And so that's a little bit of weight for her. She has to be prepared to tell me, hey, that wasn't good. So far, she hasn't had to do it yet, but that, she's got, most of her work comes in if I win.
Okay. How big are your crowns on average?
We've been balancing right around 45 to 50.
It's pretty cool. And it's double limb, best 2 out of 3 mostly?
Well, since my first, so before my first crown was like double limb, single fight until the finals were 2 out of 3. My first crown tournament that was mine to host, I changed it to 2 out of 3 every round, and it stayed. Every king since me has kept it there.
And what do you like better about that than the one fight?
You have to be better than just you got lucky. You can land something, just, that blind squirrel can find an acorn. You can get that one shot and take somebody out of crown. But you're not going to get it twice. If you weren't the better fighter, the odds are you're not going to win a 2 out of 3 fight.
Okay. So let's talk about reigning. What is your favorite part of reigning?
Making people cry.
In a good way.
In a good way. I actually have a scrapbook of people that I've made ugly cry. All of the photographers in the kingdom, I'll give heads up, like, hey, you'll probably get something this court. You should be ready. I like to be able to have that connection, have that moment, and make it special enough that they would cry. That, because I think that's the real value in what we do. It's the connection you make with people, that they'll remember you forever. Especially like an AOA, because you're telling people you belong here. You're one of us. It's like you paid for your membership card, but until you have your AOA, that's your membership, really, to most people.
Right.
Especially if you don't have it. So
what do you do to make something like that special for someone?
Take the time to know why they're getting it. Look at the information, talk to people, and then usually, like, once they get called in, either me or my queen will be talking about them. But once they're kneeling and once they're there in front of us, I'll usually have something I saved that I'll say just to them, with complete eye contact. Just very heartfelt. Making them feel. And it's real though, because I want them to feel that. So.
Cool. What's your favorite tradition in your kingdom?
Well, I'm not going to be the first one to say it because you've already interviewed people from here, but it's that our kings crown themselves, and it's I think a lot of it is because it's a tradition that we've had since the beginning, like since our first coronation, and it was because when we broke from the West, the Western crown did not show up to the coronation. So our first crown had to crown himself. And we've kept with that tradition.
I love this stuff.
I know, that's it, right?
Yeah,
that's cool. Part of why I travel as much as I do is because you get to learn those things in other kingdoms. And
yeah, I think, I can't remember if it was Steingram or James that told me about why we do the Circle of Steel too. And it's totally like a thing to the West too. So sometimes your best traditions come out of sort of like an FU to the kingdom you broke from. I don't know.
Well, I think it helps your kingdom have their own identity. Yeah. That's one of the things I love the most, is that not all the kingdoms are the same. Just like baronies are not all the same. They're a product of their growth as they came up. And those things are what makes it. Like if every group was exactly the same, how boring would it be?
Right. What were you most surprised by when you first reigned?
The bonds that you build with the other seated crowns. I have so many friends that were people I didn't know before I stepped up, but they were reigning at the same time. And so, like, part of it is you end up at the same events together and you're having meals together, but you're going through the same troubles, and it's like a place where you can actually talk about what's going on. And and so you just build these friendships. I mean, so many of my out of kingdom friends, that's where the friendship started from, is that we reigned together.
That's cool. Do you have a favorite memory from being king?
There's so many times people cried.
The ugliest of ugly cries?
I don't know, probably one of my favorites was my second reign. I was an Estrella crown, and I can remember we'd fought all day on Saturday. It was rough too. Like the last battle was a grueling res battle, but it was clear that some people wanted to still fight. And so me and the Crown of the Outlands jumped up on a hay bale, and got everybody around. And I, very tired, wanting to call it a day. Without, if anybody else wants to continue, we can do this. We can do another hour res. I'll stay the field if you want to be here. I'll stay the field till the last of you leaves. And I just, the response of the crowd, which meant I was going to get to fight for another hour. It was just, just having that much of an effect. That was a great day.
That's cool. I noticed that you also are a pelican.
Yeah, thanks to Merrick.
Merrick, no. What is your service wonk? Like, is it fighting related? Reigning?
I've worked staff, so my understanding, because obviously I wasn't in the circle when they passed.
Well, right.
So my understanding is it's a lot of, I've worked Estrella War since I was Baron. But then also I was told that it also had to do with all the inter-kingdom relations that I've done for years, traveling and building those friendships and getting people to come back to Australia. We, as a kingdom, kind of ruined that war for a while and drove a lot of people off. And so we've been on a crusade for the last 6 or so years to rebuild it and get people to want to come back. So that was my understanding.
Well, I mean, I'm not questioning it. I mean, you landed Baron, you've reigned 4 times, and I wondered if there was like a particular niche that.
I'll be honest, I questioned it. So I felt that the service I do was my duty as a knight. So.
See, I think the pelican is hard to people when their service they feel is knight related, because it's hard to sort of wrap your head around something that you weren't actually striving for, right? Like, I don't know. I get that.
I was just trying to make things better. So.
Right. Which I guess is the whole point, right? Like you chased your passion and you made things better for everyone. So that's cool. What are your other interests in the SCA? Do you have any artistic interests?
Yeah, I do metalwork.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I do a lot of bracelets and Viking jewelry, that kind of stuff.
Nice. Did you have things you wanted to do as king before you stepped up?
I just wanted to reign well. I just wanted to inspire the populace to want to come out, to want to do things, to want to travel and see the rest of the, to see the things that I had seen in my travels, And I thought as king, I could rally people to go with me when I traveled. Because I think that's the strongest part of the SCA is the bonds that we build across kingdoms, not just our close friends. It's those connections with people all over the place that makes this a better thing.
That's true. How do you balance, well, I guess first I'll ask, do you have a goal in the SCA still? And if so, what is it?
Just to continue inspiring people and getting people to trying to find a way to inspire drive.
Not going to give up on that, huh?
No, I'm not.
How do you balance your goals with mentoring others to reach their goals?
I'm not. I look for the people that want the guidance. I don't go dragging people down the hallway to come train. It's, if you want to, I'm here for you, and I'll make it easier for you. Just make it a safe place. I'm not sure.
How would you mentor or coach someone to win crown if they wanted to win crown?
I mean, that's kind of like a case-by-case basis. It really depends on, it would be all about working on their personal strengths. There's a lot of things I do that I won't spend a lot of time teaching, because if you're not as tall as me, or, not everything I do is available to everybody. So I try to dig down and figure out, what are you already good at and how can we capitalize on it? How can we grow from there? Because everybody needs to find their fight, to be honest.
Cool. Let's see. Do you think there's a difference in responsibilities or roles between being a king and being a knight and being a duke?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what are they?
One of the responsibilities of a duke is to help a king deal with things that he shouldn't be dealing with when he's wearing the hat. Maybe telling that one guy that's, maybe, having those tough conversations that maybe the king shouldn't be having. That's something I take seriously, but it's all, and like I said, the interkingdom relations, I think, is a big part of being a duke too, because you already know, and you've already met people from these other kingdoms while you were reigning, so you've got your ins into those kingdoms. I mean, that's for me, just being able to, like I said, like with Estrella, being able to bring people back that had pretty much written off that war and never wanted to come back, but by going to their kingdom and spending time with them, showing them that we're not all whatever way they think we are, and getting them to start traveling again.
It would be great if Estrella was the same thing it was like a decade and a half ago. That would be awesome. So
I'm hoping.
Why don't we, I know you don't have your sword with you, but why don't we talk about it?
Okay. So my swords are always 36 inches long. I always shave the handles down. I oval the handles so they fit my hand better, and so I know where the blade is in my hand. And then I do a single finger trigger. It's just under my middle finger. Like it barely has enough room for my middle finger to slide into it. Part of that comes from having the rheumatoid arthritis. I don't have a lot of feeling in my hand, and so it gives me the ability to not lose my sword, because it's kind of snug. And then thrusting tip, because I use it more as a feint than I actually use it as a shot. But I feel if I'm going to use it as a feint, it has to be legal.
Right.
Pretty much like everybody else, strapping tape spiraled down, and then either duct tape or hockey tape just to cover up the strapping tape.
Do you like the weight at the tip or at the handle, or
kind of balanced? I don't like it to be heavy one way or the other.
Okay. And plastic hilts?
Yeah. The most of the metal hilts that are like a full cup, my hand doesn't fit in them. And the barred ones, I always catch myself sticking my thumb out. And so I realized that I'd be better off in the plastic hilt where my hand won't stick out.
I guess. All right. What about your shield? Do you do anything special with your shield? You do center grip, right?
Yeah, it's a center grip teardrop. The center grip is usually, I'll mark out what the circle, if you change it from a teardrop to a circle, and I'll find the center of that circle, and then it's usually 3 inches down from that is where the hole will be in my shield. My handle, goes from the top to the bottom of the shield, not just above top and bottom of the hole. And that's to keep control. So if somebody hits the shield high or hits it low to try to knock it out of alignment, it doesn't put the pivot point on my wrist. It puts it on the furthest point of the handle. And so it takes all of the abuse away from my wrist. And then I generally will make the handle so that my hand is, the shield will sit here on my hand instead of, a lot of people will be here and it screws up the balance. So like my hand is all the way in that center grip.
Do you mount your handle straight or do you cant it?
No, handle straight. Any manipulation, any other manipulation will be done with my, I'll do it with my wrist, turning it.
And do you like put a towel or a foam thing at the top? Or
I've got a foam disc that sits above my hands.
I think like when people switch to round shield, they don't realize that you need something there and you end up with these bloody knuckles. And
yeah. I mean, I also have demis on both of my hands, demi gauntlets on both of my hands anyways, but it's just from keeping it from jarring on my hand, the foam there. I have one in my sword too, so.
Oh, really?
I do thrust.
Interesting. All right, well, let's go to the final 10. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
So I've been trying for a lot of years to work out so I could fight Uther. And it always goes sideways. The last 2 times, well, so Estrella was a bust because of the weather. The rain, it rained out, so I couldn't fight him in Estrella. And the last 2 times I was where he was, he ended up winning crown that day. So I was hopeful that, you know, I would get to fight him that day, but he made it to the end both of those days. So I'd like to fight Uther.
Have you ever fought Uther?
No, never. Never.
Oh.
I fought most of the other people, so.
He's going to have a really long line once this COVID thing is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like the 3rd or 4th person that I've talked to who has never fought him that wants to fight him.
Well, and it's that because we've tried so many times. It's always been so close and then we just don't get to.
All right. Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
So it's a toss-up, but I'm going to go with my current heir. So I actually will get to see him reign. I've watched Zipser come up for so many years, and I've always valued who he is as a person. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, him and Minako too. Looking forward to what they're going to bring to the job.
Yeah, such good people, both of them. If you could talk stick with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
If I had to pick one, just one?
You can pick more than one. I don't care.
Probably Branos, which means I'd probably get Rongvalder too.
The horror.
Right?
Get them both.
Yep.
Yeah, the coaches corner thing they do on Fridays is like my highlight of the week. I love listening to them talk. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
So I've heard you ask everybody and they all hesitated. I'm like, there's no hesitation. Excalibur. That was the movie that made me want to be a knight. You know, I can remember because I saw it when it was in the theaters.
So did I. I was way too young.
I was way too young to see it in the theaters as well. But I could just remember, like, I was like, you know, seeing all the armor, which is funny because when I started, I fought with a lot of armor. And now I fight with almost none. But yeah, I can remember I wanted to be that. That was all I wanted. So definitely.
Very cool. That's super cool. If you could add a rule to the rules of the list, what would it be?
I don't really think we need to add any rules.
Okay.
I think we should be policing ourselves. I mean, the only rules you would have to add now are just people not being decent. I don't think we need to put rules in place to police bad behavior. We should just be addressing bad behavior.
Okay. I think that would be great in an ideal world.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. What is your favorite tournament format? I think we've probably covered this, but.
Yeah, no, probably not. I love bear pits because it means I get to fight a lot. And it's a great tool for learning how to conserve energy. Because if you're not losing, it gets harder and harder because the line never stops.
Right.
And so I've always enjoyed that because it's a good test of my cardio.
All right, cool. What is your favorite event?
I want to say Estrella because it's my home event, but I actually really love Great Western because the pickup fighting community, like in the afternoons, there's this nice shady place around the trees, and there's always all the fights that you could possibly want. And if I could find a way to build that mentality at Estrella, I could probably say Estrella but since we don't, it's Great Western.
Well, it's always kind of nice to go out of your kingdom and not have responsibility too, right? I mean,
yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, well, I've been going to that war for like 15 years. So.
Let's see. If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
The one that I currently fight in, the one that's in the picture that you put up. That helmet, there's a funny story with that helmet. Dungal made that helmet and he sent me pictures of it. It didn't have the strawberry leaves on it when he sent me the pictures. And my device is a rearing horse, like 4 of them. So the 2 rearing horses in my grill. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can afford it right now. Like, you know, like hemming and hawing. And then he came back and he said, so I was trying to figure out my finances and if I could swing it. And then he came back and said, some guy in Australia wanted to buy it really bad and just said, give me a number. And he's like, I gave him this obscene number and he said, yes. Oh. So, and I was like, no, dude, you got to sell it. You've got a business to run. Like, I get it. You'll make another helmet. And then for the next month or so, I was like, people would message me about that helmet and I didn't think anything of it. Well, Araya had started crowdfunding for that helmet. She's the one that bought it. And so they presented it to me at Great Western, but they had spent like a month and a half, like the whole group, anybody that donated money got added to this messenger group and they would mess with me and then copy and paste their conversations with me to that message board so that they could all laugh at me and my sorrow for not getting the helmet. So
wow.
Yeah, they included me on that group after they gave me the helmet, and it took me like 3 hours to read through all of the messages.
That's love.
Right?
Yeah. So did you return the favor? Did you help crowdfund her helmet at this last Estrella?
My wife did that. I helped crowdfund her gauntlets. So we've gotten her twice now.
Yeah, her helmet, my God, like every time I look at that, I sigh. I'm just like,
I would have been involved, but that happened at Estrella, and I was so busy trying to deal with the rain and find a way so that people could fight. And that's when all that was happening. So by the time I found out it was happening, it had already finished.
All right. Anyway, you have some good friends.
Yeah.
That's an awesome gift. It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
Saturday morning, see, Sunday would be different. Saturday morning is probably, I went to bed early because I had to get up. Actually, we've been doing our big party on Friday night. So yeah, I'm afraid to ask what they would say I did.
Okay.
I mean, 2 years ago, it was, I went and had a cast put on my ankle. So.
Great. All right. Who's your favorite fight ever?
So many good fights, but I think because of how much I learned through it, Duke Ailenon. I've learned so much in the time that he's been here, made so many adjustments to my fighting. just off of, his knowledge.
He has such amazing passion. Like
Yeah.
I've only talked to him once, and
Yeah.
I just like, oh my God, that guy has so much passion. Like you just want to sit next to him and soak it all in, you know?
Yeah, the two of us actually went to the Outlands to teach. They have an event, Grace and Valor, which is it's like they're trying to build their own, I think, Sport of Kings.
Sport of Kings kind of thing.
Yeah, and so they had us come out, and we both taught classes, but we flew out there together, got a rental car, and we got to hang out a lot, and it was the first time that I had taught on that level, not just at a practice, but actually went to an event, and that's why I was there. So it was kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. All right, and then the bonus question: who is the cleanest fighter in your kingdom?
His Highness. I have to tell him to not take stuff. I'm like, no, I did not hit you. That did not. Don't take that.
He's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, he's fun to hit too, by the way.
I don't think I've ever gotten to fight him actually, but I'll have to remedy that whenever the world opens up again.
When he first moved here from the Outlands, he did this cute thing where he would try to duck under my armpit so I could hit him in the back.
He doesn't do that anymore.
No, it took a while, but he doesn't do that anymore.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate your time, and enjoy your reign that is never ending.
It is ending. There is a final date.
There is a final date.
The variants only last. Like if we have the ability to pull something off before November, we will probably try, but by November at the latest, that's when our variance runs out. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us. I think I don't talk to another Duke until Saturday. So I actually have a pretty clear week, which is nice for me, but
I was going to say, you could probably use the break at this point.
I could. Yes. All right. Thanks everyone. Thank you very much, Your Majesty, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.